The other day I had a friend ask me what I use for analytics on my website. Google Analytics and Webmaster Tools or Search Console was good, but it just had too much information for him. All that information is spread across multiple different accounts. Some of it's for his sites, others for client sites. It's good for what it is, but it felt like he couldn't quite get to the important bits easily, and he was getting pretty fed up with it. So I suggested Google Data Studio, which I learned about from Brandy Lawson at WordCamp Phoenix a couple weeks ago. She runs a company called FieryFX, which if you haven't heard of her, you should go check her services out. I've consulted with her before and gotten some really good strategic advice from her. But anyway, in her talk, Brandy walked through how to use and set up Google Data Studio reports. And I actually was able to set up my own report during her talk. Her talk was only a half hour or 45 minutes long, so it wasn't a huge time investment. And I was distracted by other things too, so I probably could have even done it quicker if I just sat down and focused on that on my own. But it allowed me to get some really good high-level reporting set up for my own sites, which I desperately needed, because I found myself kind of in my friend's shoes, where I was just kind of drowning in a sea of data. It was just way too much information, and it wasn't what I needed. And knowing my friend, he has dozens of sites, and he wants to be able to get insights into the visitors without having to log into multiple accounts or navigate through multiple screens and then filter data just to get to what's important to him. So I said I'd send him some information about how to set up Google Data Studio reports, but instead I decided to make this video. So if you go to datastudio.google.com, as you can see over here, you'll be able to see some sample reports that they have. Initially, when you get to the page, it'll look like this, but if you click All Templates, you'll see a handful of basic reports that they have set up. You could start with a blank report if you want, but if you're just starting out with Data Studio, I'd suggest using one of the pre-built templates that they have. As you can see, there's a template for a lot of different use cases, so like marketing or e-commerce, pay-per-click, general e-commerce stuff, and a few others depending on different use cases that you might have. It also tells you where the data is coming from. So under here you can see it says Google Analytics or Search Console or AdWords or YouTube, and a few others. While this is where the data is coming from in the initial reports that will get set up, you can also add other data sources to get specific data in, from each source. So, for example, if we chose this Google Analytics report, and then we also had some Search Console and AdWords stuff that we wanted to pull in, we can add those data sources to whichever report we get that we end up using. Really, it's just a starting point, all of these templates, and we can always add more sources later. But for this demonstration, let's choose a basic Google Analytics report. Let's choose this one here. And so when we click through, Data Studio shows us a report that's filled with some sample data. None of this is real site data. It's just kind of basic information or whatever. But we get an idea of what kind of information gets included in this report. So for example, we have our number of users that came to the site during this time period, looks like a month time period or so. Users and number of sessions, number of page views on the site, the bounce rate, and how that compared to the prior period. So is it better or worse than the prior period? How are the sessions trending? What are the top countries that have visited the site? Where's the traffic coming from? Is it organic search results? Is it direct traffic, social, things like that, paid search or whatever? The age and gender of your audience, are they male or female, or how old are they? All sorts of things like that. All get included in this report. Now, some of this information might be useful to you. Some of it might not be useful. Really, it's up to you, your particular situation, your particular website, what it is that's important to you, that's going to matter. But for now, this is a good starting point, kind of gives us a good place to start from and jump into this. So let's click Use Template. And then here, so the original data source is just, like I said before, sample Google Analytics data. So it's not real traffic, not real numbers. The numbers that you see will probably be exactly the same as what I'm showing up here or whatever. So we're going to click a new data source here. And if you haven't already connected your Google Analytics account to here, so I already have a few different analytics accounts connected, you can click Create New Data Source. And then over here where it says Connectors is all the different places that you can add data from. So Google AdWords, or Google Analytics, Google Sheets even. So if you have a spreadsheet that you keep updated with certain information, you can pull that information into your report as well. Google Search Console, which used to be called Webmaster Tools, YouTube Analytics, and other things like that. There may even be other connections that become available over time. This is still a relatively new service, so what we see here is what it is, but it's still got a lot of good information, especially if you've already been using things like analytics on your website. And for now, we're going to just go with Google Analytics just for simplicity. Select the account, and let's just pick my site here. Go through the property and view. It's the same kind of setup that you would see in Google Analytics, and then just click Connect here. So what that's going to do is it's going to bring up all the data that's available in Google Analytics. But if you look through here and we scroll all the way down, there's almost 500 different data points that are available in Google Analytics here. So all this stuff here is all the different kinds of ways of filtering out the data and analyzing it and everything like that. So so it's great that it has all this information, but if you're going to Google Analytics and you have to go to all the different pages and all the different filterings and all the different views and everything like that, just to find the handful of pieces of information that's important to you, whether it's e-commerce data or traffic sources, things like that, it's going to be hard for you to find that information within Google Analytics easily and efficiently, especially if you start looking at multiple sites. If you have 3, 4, 5, 10 different sites that you have to go through and search through all that stuff, it's going to make it pretty difficult for you to do. So anyways, so this is all the different kinds of data that's available. Then we just click over here and say Add to Report. Okay, and then so right now we have this new data source, which is my site, and then we'll put Create Report. Then let it do its thing for a minute, and then we'll take a look. So we have a similar report to what we had before, with that sample data, but now it's showing real data. So it's now it's showing the actual number of users and where the traffic's coming from. Is it coming from search traffic or social, or where in the world is that traffic coming from? Is it in the United States, India, things like that, which seems like that's where I'm getting most traffic from. But also, age and gender. So we have male versus female, age ranges here for the traffic. So it gives us a lot of good information just in this one basic report. But what if this isn't the information that I really care about? Or maybe it's not even the language that I use. Maybe I don't call these users. Maybe I call these visitors or something. So there's ways that you can go and style this information, change some of this information around, and right now I need to scroll over here. So there's ways that we could change some of this information. So for example, if I don't really care about how the sessions are trending, maybe there's some other report that I want. I would go over here to my data source, which I still want to keep it as my Google Analytics traffic. The time dimension is the date, which is probably okay, but let's say I want to change from sessions to something else. What I would do is I'd just go down here to the metric. I'd click on edit. Oops, that's the edit the name. I'd click on here, and then I would say maybe I care more about I don't know, traffic sources. So maybe I'll go over here and I'll say organic searches or something. So this will now show me organic searches versus the organic searches the previous 30 days, which right now this seems to be set up for 30-day report. So that gives me that type of information. Same with this. Maybe I don't care if someone's a male or a female or whatever. So maybe I want to change this dimension. So I don't have gender, but maybe some other information. So right now I clicked gender, but maybe I don't know. I'm not sure how some of this will show up here, but okay. So this affinity category is what people are interested in. So are they shoppers or into technology, things like that? So maybe that's more what I'm interested in. So I can easily change that just by changing the dimension or the metric that's being used. So if I come up here and I see that I have users, but maybe I call them visitors, I click on that little edit button, and I'm going to call that visitors, and now that changes to visitors. So it's really easy to change this information and kind of set it up the way you want it. Now if I click on view, this is the way the report's going to show up. So if I on a regular basis, if I want to come and view my information, I can come here, and it's just going to provide me with up-to-date information. Go back to edit. Over here, the date range, you can kind of set a default date range, so you can set it to maybe like the last 30 days, or maybe you want to see all of last month, and so that way, anytime that you come and visit it, you'll always be looking at last month's data, as opposed to a moving target that might be the last 30 days, which is getting updated every single day. That might be a little bit too much data that's going on. Maybe you just want to take a look at what happened from the first of the last month to the 30th or 31st, whatever, of the previous month. Or maybe you want to see what happened this whole year or last year or something. But whatever you select here, so for example, let's just say the last 30 days, whatever you select here is going to be the data that gets set up here. And so tomorrow when I come and visit this, this date range will automatically change. So I don't have to keep going in and changing that. But at the same time, when I'm looking at it, maybe I'm curious to see, okay, what happened in August or something. So I can always go back, just like in Google Analytics, I can go back and select August 1st through the 31st, and then apply that, and it'll update the numbers and show me different information here based on the date range that I selected. But all this stuff here gives me a good high-level overview without having to dig through all of the data that's available within Google Analytics or Webmaster or Search Console or any of those other data sources that are available. If I wanted to add some information that maybe isn't available in Google Analytics, for example, maybe I care not so much about the different countries that are visiting, but maybe I care more about the search terms that are being used. And Google Analytics, if you've ever taken a look at the search terms that they show, a lot of times they put a big chunk of your traffic in a not set or not listed, I forget the exact words that they use, thing there. And a lot of the search terms get lost in that. And so you end up losing some information there about your visitors in terms of what they're searching for, because that data just isn't getting passed to Google Analytics. But on the other hand, Google Search Console does have that information. So Like I said before, you can actually change the data source. So right now all of this information is coming from Google Analytics. But when I click on, for example, like either this map or this chart or whatever, this table properties or the map properties all can be changed individually. So we could change the data sources for each one of these charts or data sets that we have here just by clicking on it and changing the data source. So if I go over here, I can go over to the create a new data source, click Google Search Console, there it is, and then I have a ton of different sites here, but let's just pick one here. Let's just say a site impression. I think the site is good. This gives me all this information, including the search term used here in order to get to the site. So let's add that to the report. Okay, good. Add that. Okay. So now it says configuration incomplete because the dimension, metric, or filter is not valid. That's fine. So right now the country I don't really care about. I care more about the query here. So let's set that. And then let's get rid of these metrics. Add a metric and say I care about the clicks and the click-through rate. Alright, for some reason that's not coming through correctly. I'll have to look at that. But anyways, that's how you would add a new data source. You'd probably have to play around with that information. Oh, I know why, because I picked the wrong data source, that's why. Let's go here, go to Search Console, and find. Click that, and go with site impression, connect, add to report, yes. Okay, so that gives me, that's a little bit better. Okay, so that gives me the correct data source. I'm using the query as the dimension, so this is what I care about here for the query. And then the number of impressions. So the impressions are how many times my site showed up somewhere in the search results. May not have been on the first page, may have been on the 10th page, but it's how many times it's showing up for a particular keyword here. So as you can see, I have quite a bit here. It's probably more than I need. Maybe I need to filter it even more or whatever and sort it by different dimensions or whatever. But for now, that gives you an idea of how we can pull in different data sources into one report. You can create like a little one-pager report here like this, or say you have more information. Maybe this is good for like general traffic, but maybe you're an e-commerce site and you care about e-commerce type data. You can always go up here, add a page, and then you can start adding new information. So if you want to add a table or charts or whatever, or even geographical information, you can just kind of drag and drop that in, put that there. So that shows you how many clicks by country by looking at this. So coming from Search Console, we have our country dimension and clicks. You want to change that from the world view down to maybe a continent view. Maybe you only care about the Americas, or even drill that down further, just you care about North America maybe, or South America or something like that. Then you can kind of drill down to exactly what it is that you want. But it gives you a ton of power to be able to filter through this data and set up a report once, go through all the settings once, kind of the pain, if you will, of setting up the report once, and then anytime you want to come back to this report, you can always come back and it'll automatically refresh itself and update itself based on the date and time periods that you put into the report. and you'll easily be able to view all the data that is important to your business, to your website, and check it out that way. So that's a kind of overview of how the Search Console and analytics can get pulled into the Data Studio reports. A bunch of other information can get pulled in. As I was saying before, you can do things like Google Sheets, which could be important if you have data that is, maybe it only updates every once in a while, or maybe your Google Sheets automatically gets updated from some other external data source. Maybe you're using automation tools like Zapier or something like that to pull information into your Google Sheets. You can automatically have that data get pulled into your Data Studio report, which is really powerful because it uses that automation tool to be able to populate the sheet, and then also automates pulling that information into your report that you're using as a high-level kind of overview of your business on the data that's actually important. That's all I got now for setting up the Google